Nate.
Yeah?
We can never, ever come back to this city.
Add it to the list. Don't worry, I got this. I don't got this!
Bear, you think they sent enough goons after us?
Well, we're still alive, so maybe not.
We're running out of road, kid.
I know.
Hey!
Here, take the wheel.
What? You out of your goddamn mind?
Yep, probably. Oh, crap.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation. Okay, here's the story. In Chapter 11 of Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, titled Hidden in Plain Sight, Nathan Drake and Victor Sullivan are exploring a clock tower. As you do. Nathan, or Nate, as I'll refer to him, along with Sullivan,
That one didn't work, Nate.
Sully, were visiting said clock tower as the final destination of a globe-trotting goose chase adventure. Their goal? The treasure of Henry Avery, a pirate captain it said had hidden away a sizable fortune he and a cabal of other pirate captains plundered during a 1695 heist on the Mughal trading ship the Ganjai Sawai, better known by its anglicized name, the Gunsway. The spoils of that fortune would be enough to satisfy the demands of Hector Alcazar, who orchestrated a prison escape with fellow inmate and Nathan's brother, Sam Drake. Thing is, Alcazar didn't take Sam along for the ride because he needed his aim or muscle. He had a squad of gun-toters at his beck and call. No, Alcazar needed Sam because Sam knew something he didn't. The location of what else but Avery's treasure. Unfortunately for Sam, Alcazar is not a patient man. He gives Sam an ultimatum: track down Avery's treasure within just 3 months, or die. At a loss, Sam comes hat in hand to Nathan for help with his little dilemma, much to Nate's shock and dismay. See, for 15 years, Nate thought Sam had died in a prison break gone wrong, the same prison Sam would escape from alongside Alcazar. The two wound up there because they thought it was the hiding spot of Avery's treasure, so they let themselves get arrested and thrown into the prison alongside businessman and fellow treasure hunter Rafe Adler, and then made a deal with the prison's corrupt warden so they could get the ball rolling on finding the treasure. Flash forward to present day, Nate's long been racked with guilt over how the situation played out. After all, he's got a cushy underwater salvaging job, a mansion-sized house, and a loving wife in Elena Fisher, while poor Sam has nothing but the clothes and target on his back. So, reluctantly, Nate agrees to Sam's request. He tells Elena that he's accepted his company's offer for a temp job overseas, when really he's headed for an auction, then to a cathedral, a volcano, and finally to that clock tower, where they find not treasure but the whereabouts of Libertalia, a fabled pirate utopia established by a group of 12 legendary captains, Avery included, who there pooled and hid their combined treasure away from prying eyes. Of course, it won't be a straight shot getting to Libertalia, because as the crew previously learned, good old Rafe Adler is back in the saddler.
Rafe Adler.
Mr. Nathan Drake! He too is after Avery's treasure, and to get it, he's partnered with Nadine Ross, the head of private military company Shoreline. Oh, and he's still pissed about the whole Nate, Sully, and Sam stealing the Dismas idol at the Italy auction situation. That's a thing that happened. So when Nate calls Sam to give him the good news about Libertalia, Rafe instead picks up, I guess because he hacked their phones or something. Anyway, Rafe offers Nate a deal. Cut his losses and go home, and Rafe will forget about the whole thing, or stick around for a bullet from one of Shoreline's goons. Nate chooses the latter, so Rafe sends said goons after Sam, who is busy looking for the treasure at a different tower, the wrong tower. Knowing Rafe won't spare goons to have Nate and Sully's heads, the two decide to get the hell out of Dodge. They spot an explosion at Sam's tower from a distance and head toward him. And as they traipse through a market standing between them and Sam, a buffet of gunfire from Shoreline goons rings in a 15 or so minutes long gameplay sequence I have thought about for years. The chase sequence, as I'll refer to it, is like the apex of everything action-adventure games had been working toward up until Uncharted 4's release in May 2016. Plenty of games before had incredible action sequences, many of them by Uncharted developer Naughty Dog themselves. But for my money, no sequence before or since has ever been so varied, dynamic, interactive, tactile. I mean, I could come up with 80 more adjectives to try and pin down what the sequence is like to actually play, but they simply wouldn't do the thing justice. You start boots on the ground in a pretty traditional cover shooter stop and pop setup. There are bad guys, they're shooting you, so you need to shoot at them. But they can destroy damn near all your cover, so you have to be agile to survive. And in a lot of cases, that means getting up close and personal as you tag team enemies with Sully. Still, you're halfway through the game. Even if this is somehow your first third-person shooter, you've been through plenty of combat scenarios up to this point. What can Uncharted 4 possibly throw at you that can throw off your game? How about an armored truck that tries to murder you everywhere you go, even inside the nearest building where more enemies await? You quickly realize you can't damage this thing, so you hop in a Jeep to put the truck in your rearview mirror and catch up with Sam. And from there, it's all downhill. Literally. You are just barreling down this incline lined with streets, sidewalks, civilians, buildings, market stalls, cultural landmarks, all a blur amidst the frenzy of the moment. As you swerve your way around twists and turns, down flights of stairs, and through any opening you can fit into, you're constantly pursued by that relentless truck.
Alright, let's see that truck get past that.
Eventually, you run out of road, so Sully takes the wheel so you can throw your lot in with a different truck by way of a grappling hook. The truck drags you through water and mud, all the while practically beckoning you to pull your way up to the goons in the truck bed, so you can beat them up, take their guns, shoot their guys, jump off, grab a different Jeep, run over a motorcyclist, and another, ditch it when it's ready to blow, shoot more guys, punch more guys, all this until finally you've caught up with Sam. 5-star finish. No notes. But then you get hit. Your Jeep flips over, leaving Nate stuck beneath as it begins to catch fire. With his remaining strength, you as Nate grab any handhold in sight to claw his way out of the smoldering mass of steel and finally gun down 2 shoreline goons.
Holy shit, he's still alive!
Okay, now it's over. Until the armored truck comes back. Yikes. Luckily, Sam snatches up Nate and hands you a gun to take down the truck once and for all while he zips past buildings, down a grass slope, between warehouses, through a warehouse, along a port, through a cargo container, along a platform, and then finally slides under this thing, which the truck collides with, explodes, and of course, does cool flips.
Holy shit!
Having left a trail of carnage in their wake, all for a treasure that will ostensibly save Sam's life, the two take a moment to catch their breaths. They chortle at the chaos and finally drive away scot-free, while longshoremen gape in shock. Naughty Dog unveiled the sequence at Sony's 2015 E3 press conference, a showcase remembered fondly as an all-timer of video game marketing events. Key among its highlights were the re-unveiling of the long-dormant Team Ico PlayStation 3 game The Last Guardian for PlayStation 4, the announcement of internet forum Dream Games' Final Fantasy VII Remake and Shenmue 3, and the reveal of Guerrilla Games' first new world since Killzone in Horizon Zero Dawn. Yet amidst these highlights, Uncharted 4, a game we'd already seen a few times prior, still shined because of the sheer spectacle of this unbelievable chase sequence. And they only showed the first half of it. And the live demo they had planned didn't even work. It's a testament to the sequence's just sheer visual audacity that in 2015, watching this sequence live streamed at a terrible bitrate, we couldn't believe it was real. Flash forward 11 months to when the game came out, and it turned out, yeah, this sequence is real. You actually play that. It's crucial to emphasize that from the moment the first bullet is fired to when the truck explodes, almost everything you see in this sequence, you have agency over. Naughty Dog here largely eschews the QuickTime events that permeated many other action game set pieces at the time, instead opting to leverage nearly all of Uncharted 4's core systems into one perfectly paced sequence that you as the player are an indelible part of. And while you focus on staying alive amidst this luxurious prestige pandemonium, you are driving by thousands of unique art assets a second, a ton of which are missable due to optional pathways. There's just so much effort put into this one thing. It's truly mind-boggling. You can't help but wonder how Naughty Dog pulled it off. I just friggin' love it. 10 out of 10 for me. Dev score 10 out of 10. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've got. Thanks for watching. Uncharted TM4 A Thief's End is available now for PlayStation 4 TM on the PlayStation Store TM, and through your PlayStation Plus Extra subscription as part of the Uncharted TM Legacy of Thieves collection for PlayStation 5 TM. It's also available for PC on Steam. So treasure hunters, get out there and seek your fortune. But before you do, you know what time it is. It's pop quiz time. It's pop quiz time. Question. At which of these real-world cities does the chase sequence I just described take place? Flaneur in India, Naravista in Morocco, Dominga in Brazil, Guaratok in Venezuela, or Daila in Mozambique? Take your time. While you think it through, I'd like to point out or remind you that games, like any work of art, are more than just a summation of their constituent elements. Rather, these pieces combine to become texts that, purposefully or not, say something about the world or the human condition. And there's one moment in Uncharted 4's chase sequence that, like the answer to our pop quiz, was hiding in plain sight the whole time, and that illustrates more clearly than any other in the game what Uncharted 4 is really about. What it believes.
Hey, Nate,
Yeah?
we can never, ever come back to this ship.
Add it to the list.
Hey, I think that's him. Right there.
New Devon, here we come.
Sometimes I do think with these games, at what cost to find the treasure, you know? Like, how many people have we probably killed doing
Yeah,
this?
you've just ruined entire family's livelihood for like a week.
Yeah.
If you ask anyone at Naughty Dog what's most important in telling a compelling video game story, they'll probably tell you the same thing.
Characters, 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 characters,
Characters.
characters, characters, characters,
Characters.
characters, 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 characters,
Characters.
characters, 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 characters,
Characters.
And it's not like there's no reason for that. We are people. We have thoughts, ideas, feelings, and characters are essentially fictional people. They're abstractions of us. So it's natural to look to a work of fiction's characters as an anchor cementing our engagement with a story. But so many video game writers tend to offer up characters and the relationships as a catch-all solution to every challenge posed by the act of crafting a story. This makes their stories laser-focused on the quote-unquote universal things that make us quote-unquote human. Things like fear, loss, hate, and love. Relationships building and falling apart. Our emotional centers. But writing a story with these elements as the sole focus purges identity from narrative, turning characters into blank slates. This makes it easier to comfortably fit any character into every story. The places game characters live in or visit then become little more than backdrops, set dressing. Locales and biomes varied enough to distract from the inherent monotony of engaging with the game's core mechanics and loops across lengthy playtimes. These games through visuals and sounds may showcase a surface-level interest in cultures that differ from the creative teams, but often their high-level narratives have little to no interest in tangibly engaging with those cultures beyond throwaway flavor text or ambient dialogue heard in the background while the player goes about their objective. There's perhaps no better game series that illustrates this storytelling approach than Uncharted, which from 2007 to 2016 saw Nathan Drake and friends exploring the jungles, temples, dungeons, and so on of different parts of the world, all to track down some long-thought lost treasure. Along the way, they face hardships that put them at odds with each other, and in overcoming these obstacles, they become closer as friends and family. Nate is often described as an everyman, meaning he's a character who looks, acts, and only does things that normal, able-bodied people can. On paper, anyone can comfortably embody him to climb, leap, and shoot away a couple hours a night. But you could really say the same for Uncharted's cast that consists largely of white people from America, a race and country pretty well known for our history of colonialism, imperialism, and tribalism, among other things. These isms stem not from whiteness as some cultural monolith that just existed in the aether, but from individual actors who built, existed in, were influenced by, and benefited from that culture. The founders of the American state and whiteness and its other myriad forms were human beings. They had love for some people and some things, and fear and hatred toward others. Those negative sentiments mostly saved for the people that didn't look like them. In many places in America today, this kind of overt othering is frowned upon on paper. On paper, there are laws forcing American companies to hire people from diverse backgrounds. On paper, Americans are free to eat, worship, wear their hair, and do anything as they see fit, as long as they're not hurting anyone. So, on paper, America is no monoculture, but a melting pot of sorts that's diverse to its core. But we all know that's not completely true. In America, the people with the lion's share of money, land, access, social mobility, and so on are mostly white. And if they're not white, they're pressured to conform to tacit respectability standards codified by white culture so they can cling to what little scraps of capital, power, and influence remain available while they can. In a society like this, much lip service is paid to the importance of all the different kinds of diversity you can think of because it's sexy and profitable, but little work is done or resources provided to materially support diverse people. I'm probably not saying anything here you don't already know. Unintentionally or not, Uncharted embodies this American trend, ideology, whatever you want to call it. It proudly displays worldly ethnicities, races, and cultures, things that are core to one's identity, as feel-good diversity signifiers, yet completely neutralizes the meanings and significances of these things because the series' white male creative team can't see how they would relate to the emotional and dramaturgical basics that seem to be the objects of their work's obsession. Their characters see only their objectives, which mostly involve finding treasure and fabled kingdoms. That's where all the conflict and drama emerges. There's no room for characters to carefully consider the places they visit unless those places house or are their quarry. To put it in gamer terms, their brains are perpetually in detective vision mode. They only see waypoint markers, not all the surrounding things and people that make up a place. Earlier, I tasked you with determining where in the real world Uncharted 4's chase sequence takes place. Whether you knew the answer or not, I suspect you were taken off guard by my having posed this question. In thinking it over, you might have realized I'd never specified any parts of the world where Uncharted 4's plot happens. I wouldn't be surprised if, in listening to my description of literally half the game's plot, you never once questioned where the game's characters were at any given moment. And I wouldn't be shocked if you simply picked at random one of the 5 locations I displayed on screen just to try and get it right. No judgments if that's the case. I probably would have done the same if I were in your shoes. However, none of those cities actually exist. I made them all up. In actuality, Uncharted 4's chase sequence takes place in the capital of Madagascar, Kings Bay, which is also not a real place, so it's not actually Madagascar's capital. That's another lie for the lie jar. But Kings Bay is based off of Madagascar's actual capital, Antananarivo, though in the game it really is called Kings Bay. Naughty Dog changed the name as seems to be common practice in video games that take place in real-world countries. I assume because legal teams want to be able to break glass for plausible deniability in case anyone were to take offense to, for example, 2 wisecracking white American male leads running roughshod through the homes and places of business that constitute a facsimile of a real African city. But surely it's not just white people doing the bad stuff in this game, right? I mean, there's gotta be some mainish character who's not white that gets up to some bad stuff. And yeah, kind of. There's Nadine, I guess. So, she's South African, though the reason I hesitate to count her is because she's motion capped and voiced in English by a white American woman, Laura Bailey. Uncharted 4 co-director and lover of stepping on rakes, Neil Druckmann, claims this is because when they were casting for Nadine, quote, "We just had kind of who she is, the army she runs, and that she's from South Africa." Knowing that Nadine was envisioned as a South African, it's strange that Laura Bailey chose and was allowed to read for the character. Strange that she was offered the final role as she's not South African, and especially strange because she's not a woman of color. She's a white lady. Similarly, Hector Alcazar, a Panamanian, is played by Robin Atkin Downes, who is a white British American. Naughty Dog's approach to Uncharted 4's characters here, diversify but de-racialize, treats diversity as mere aesthetic, a box to be arbitrarily checked off without actually doing the diversity part. So it doesn't matter how much research Naughty Dog did to accurately portray the people, places, and cultures found throughout Uncharted 4, because the creative vision and executors of that vision are fundamentally all white. It's why it was so easy for me to describe in detail the first half of Uncharted 4's story without mentioning anything about those places, cultures, and their respective peoples that constitute it. Those things really don't matter to the core characters, which, again, to Naughty Dog are the most important thing in a story, meaning they can't possibly matter to the story writ large. The only things that matter to the story are getting the treasure, arguing over the treasure, the perils of compulsively lying to your spouse, losing the treasure, and growing closer as a result of the whole shebang. The chase set piece could have taken place literally anywhere, even like Dallas. Now I do think this is about to be a rodeo. And the result would have been the same because it doesn't matter to the story where it takes place. But it feels particularly racialized that it would happen in a place occupied exclusively by people of color, a place that to Nate and Sully is mere exotic texture to be felt and thrown away as soon as they get their little map to their pirate mega treasure world. So when Sully snarks to Nate that the two can never return to Kings Bay, yeah, I bristle at the sheer callousness the two openly regard Madagascar and its people with.
That feeling when you just got chased through a city, dragged through a river, survived a caravan of mercenaries, and looked good doing it? Hashtag Uncharted 4, hashtag ND throwback.
But I also can't help but laugh at the absurdity of these characters having this particular conversation, as if they would ever think to come back for any reason other than a new treasury to find. Like, Kings Bay might as well not exist once they're done with it. And moments like this register as particularly egregious in Uncharted 4, specifically because this game is unique in the Uncharted series and that it attempts to frame itself as an introspective character study of who Nate really is and how his actions impact the people around him. This is very much a post-The Last of Us Naughty Dog making this game. So when the crew learns Elena sensed Nate was lying about the work trip and tracked him all the way to Madagascar to spoil his fun, the argument and schism that ensue over family drama rings hollow when the fact that Nate, Sam, and Sully, having literally just played an instrumental role in ruining countless innocent lives, goes completely unaddressed by everyone, even Elena. It simply never registers, because what's really important here is that Nate likes treasure hunting more than playing Crash Bandicoot with his wife. The remaining story beats are as banal as they are deeply unserious. Sam and Nate follow some clues to an uninhabited island located somewhere vaguely in the Indian Ocean. Rafe reveals Sam lied about the prison story. Elena shows up out of the blue again to save Nate. Nate reconnects with Sam, who agrees to stop being an idiot and go home with them, where they'll have a heart-to-heart about Sam's massive lie. Then Sam betrays them again. Nate goes after him, kills Rafe, saves Sam, they go home, and Nate seemingly never approaches the subject of Sam's compulsive lying. Finally, we get this bizarre epilogue where you play as Nate and Elena's teenage daughter Cassie, who's home alone in their, bougie seaside resort home they can afford thanks to their business, wherein they just find, take, and I guess sell worldly treasures. We can assume their cultural kleptomania will continue well into the next line of Drakes, since the game literally ends with Nate impressing upon Cassie how cool he used to be and making a livelihood out of stealing and destroying other cultures' shit before he registered their LLC. Meanwhile, Sam and Sully team up to also do more treasure hunting. Nobody faces any consequences or learns anything, and they all live happily ever after. It's a fitting end, a thief's end, if you will, to a series that goes to great lengths to depict in exquisite visual detail places and cultures it ultimately uses to dress up the quote-unquote grounded human stories of its white Americentric ideology. Or rather, would be a fitting end, had there not actually been something of a follow-up to Uncharted 4 just 1 year later. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy began as single-player DLC for Uncharted 4 that ballooned into a standalone release cheaper than the $60 price point typical of AAA releases at the time. It stars Chloe Frazer, an Indian-Australian voiced by Claudia Black. This is kind of a weird one where Claudia Black isn't Indian, but also as far as I can tell, neither was Chloe until this game. Since her introduction in Uncharted 2, she was definitely Australian, always voiced by Claudia Black, and always had a darker complexion, though I think a lot of people chop that up to her just, having a tan. And while it's possible there's some art book or reference material I'm not aware of which specified her ethnicity before The Lost Legacy was conceived, as far as I can tell, it was previously ambiguous. Either way, she's an Indian, voiced by a white lady. Not a great start to the game. That said, Naughty Dog's decision to elaborate on Chloe's Indian ethnicity here isn't arbitrary, as The Lost Legacy's treasure hunting escapades see Chloe exploring India throughout the entirety of the game's playtime. Chloe is joined here by the still Laura Bailey voiced Nadine, who, after being outbid for Shoreland's allegiance by Rafe in Uncharted 4, now works as an independent mercenary. The two meet in an unspecified Indian city beset by a vague-natured war waged by antagonist Asav and his insurgents against quote-unquote tyrants, who we can assume to be the Indian government. There, they steal a disc, one that, when combined with Chloe's Hindu mythology knowledge passed down by her father, gives them a location: the Western Ghats. There, they'll compete with Asav to find their real target, the elephant tusk of Hindu deity Ganesh. It's a pretty traditional setup for what ends up being a pretty unusual Uncharted game. As you play, Chloe pieces together the true story of Ganesh, who lost his father Shiva defending the tusk, just like Chloe's own father died while he was searching for the tusk. Her exploration of the myriad mythological details surrounding this narrative parallel brings Chloe closer to her Indian heritage, people, and father, and shifts her sense of purpose away from greed and avarice and towards selflessness. It all culminates in a set piece that evokes Uncharted 2's much-lauded train sequence that would actually be even better than even Uncharted 4's chase sequence, quote-unquote, as a game, if it just had a little more visual variety. But what really makes The Lost Legacy's train sequence sing is how it serves as a thoughtful culmination of Chloe's character arc. Here's the breakdown. After getting the tusk, Sov trades it to Shoreline for a bomb. He loads the train's front engine with the bomb and sends it into what I believe is supposed to be the same Indian city from the beginning of the game, out of a desire to start a civil war and send India into chaos. Chloe could just walk away here. She got the tusk. She could pawn it off, take her cut, and be done with it all. Instead, she decides to go out of her way to catch up with the train to derail it and save the city. And after some hemming and hawing, Nadine and Sam decide to tag along. By the way, Sam is here. This plot detail could have felt shoehorned in, but it actually works wonders to freshen up the story, partially because his primary role here is to be a verbal punching bag for Chloe and Nadine, which, after an entire game of suffering his BS, I can appreciate. You should play this game, it's great. Anyway, you make your way to and through the train, realize you can't get rid of the bomb, switch the train's tracks away from the city, make your way back to and back through the train, kill a Sov, make your death-defying escape as the train careens off a wooden track, and save the day. Of course, it's a video game after all. But a key detail here is that amidst this bedlam, we learn that Sam managed to keep hold of the Tusk of Ganesh. And instead of fencing it to net a pretty penny, Chloe instead decides to preserve her cultural legacy, her lost legacy, by donating it to India's Ministry of Culture for posterity, much to Sam's consternation. Again, anything that bothers Sam is just a great narrative decision. And yeah, handing an artifact to the government for safekeeping isn't exactly the most radical way to celebrate your culture, but compared to Uncharted's usual approach I've gone on and on about, it's a refreshing change of pace. By the end of Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, Chloe learns to fight for something bigger than the selfish wants and desires that come part and parcel with cultural thievery. She grows closer not just to Nadine and Sam, but to her country and people, and while she and Nadine do decide to keep on as treasure hunters, and maybe this is naive, but I'd at least like to think they'll go on to do it for better reasons. To that end, this denouement to me feels like the beginnings of a rethinking for Uncharted that's more fundamental than a Thief's End's focus on interpersonal relationships above all else. This isn't to say The Lost Legacy goes all the way in this respect. It's about an Indian woman engaging with Indian mythology that seemingly was written without the involvement of any Indian folks, and again, Chloe is voiced by a white lady. The Lost Legacy is a step in the right direction, but it's only a step. And with layoffs at the studio rumored to be developing the next Uncharted while Naughty Dog turns out remakes and remasters, all the while fiddling away with a live service Last of Us project that may never see the light of day, I sadly don't see anyone taking the series in a bold new direction in the near future, if ever. But I just can't help but dream. Uncharted can still be really exciting to play even in 2023, so I'd love to see a future entry get to be about something much bigger than Nathan Drake's ultimately myopic worldview. Especially on PS5 and beyond, where the visuals and spectacle could be pushed even further. In my albeit limited view, I think crafting this kind of experience would require materially investing and training people from diverse backgrounds to hold high-level creative leadership positions, all the while enabling and respecting their creative decisions, especially when they concern and are informed by lived experiences. Yeah, we need to destroy capitalism, and to that end, I'd love seeing indie games like Venba and Thirsty Suitors spotlight their respective cultures with much smaller team sizes working outside the traditional AAA mold. But, and maybe this is paradoxical, I also want to see the potential for AAA single-player action-adventure experiences like Uncharted expand, headed by more diverse people crafting a wider variety of stories and game design fundamentals that meaningfully engage with cultures that aren't often spotlighted. In doing so, we could see more games that almost force players to excise themselves from themselves so they can become closer with the world beyond their immediate experience, which I think can be a really powerful virtue of art. The Lost Legacy's scope, its exploration of India and Hindu mythology, and the purview of its creative leadership are all inherently limited. but it does try hard to remind us that serious game stories don't have to be dour and dreary to be thoughtful explorations of this world we all share, to be more than mindless fun, and I'm grateful to it for that. Thanks for watching.